It is rare that I care about the lore in video games. If a game doesn't let me listen to an audio log in the background as I continue playing, I ignore it. If there's paper notes that aren't central to the main plot or to solve a puzzle, I pick them up and forget about them almost immediately. If I'm invested enough in a game's story, I might pick some of the additional dialogue options to learn more about the world or characters, but it's not often. I like stories and lore in video games, but I can't say that I like when they grind my progress to a halt or aren't enhancing the game in any way that's actually engaging me. Hell Is Us has, I think, unfortunately slipped under the radar for a lot of people this year. It landed on the same day as Hollow Knight Silksong and in the same week as Chronos: The New Dawn. While it received solid reviews, I haven't seen much press coverage for it beyond its initial release. On the surface, it looks like your very typical moody Souls-like action game, but that would be selling it short. Hell Is Us is really more of an adventure investigation game than it is just another traditional action adventure, and I think that's something the game struggled to get across in pre-release trailers and marketing material. You enter the war-torn country of Hedia to find your parents, and from there it becomes a winding investigation about the history of the country, the mysterious entities you're fighting against, and the larger implications of it all. Now, I want to be clear here that I don't think Hell Is Us is a perfect game. The main storyline isn't exactly interesting, and the main character reminded me a lot of Ada Pierce from the original Watch Dogs. Not exactly a character you want to be compared with. I personally found the combat of Hell Is Us fun, even though there's not much depth to it, so your personal mileage may vary if you're big into the Souls-like genre right now. Don't go in expecting a wide variety of enemies or extravagant bosses to fight. Hell Is Us' biggest selling point in its marketing was that the game wouldn't give you a map or quest markers, staple features of pretty much every open-world game that has come out over the last decade. Games like the recent open-world Assassin's Creed titles have tried to update their design to be less waypoint-driven and feature more organic exploration. But at the end of the day, they still follow the same type of mission structures that don't require players to be engaged in the actual world around them. Yeah, there's exploring and seeing pretty vistas, but it's all set dressing that isn't actually utilized in the core loop of the game's design. It doesn't matter that you know where a specific landmark is in Assassin's Creed Shadows, for example, because the game's core mission structure will tell you exactly where to go and what you need to do at every step of the way. And while they're of course very pretty to look at, the worlds a lot of these games have built are so utterly dense, expansive, and cluttered that it's almost impossible to navigate through them without getting frustrated and just turning the waypoints back on to lead you where you need to go. Hell Is Us bucks a lot of these design trends to offer a world that is dense, but not overly detailed. A mission structure that gives you a core objective, but that you, the player, actually build as you play through the game. And the entire game is designed around that ethos of not telling you what to do, but giving you a framework to work in and letting exploration and curiosity do the rest.
That's clever.
Everything from the main questline to unlocking upgrades for your weapons, glyphs that provide certain active and passive buffs, and even the locked chests or doors you find around the world are all tied to exploration. There's no skill tree to assign points to, there's no quest log to check off. There are no markers telling you to turn in an item you picked up to give to a specific person around the world. This made everything I did or found interesting to me because I didn't know what the reward would be at the end. As I was exploring the world, I stumbled upon a ruin and found some survivors as well as a locked door. I didn't have the right key for that door, and so that was another mystery for me to solve later. Or maybe not at all, and I was okay with that too. I met a person who had found a stray dog in one part of the world, and then in another part talked to someone else who had a sad story about how they had to leave their dog behind as they escaped the massacre. Then, somewhere else, I found a dog collar, which led me back to the people who had lost their dog, so that they knew it was alive and out there somewhere. Without getting too spoilery, a good deed rewarded me later with a glyph that gave me a new passive buff. In some of the different locations in the game, there'd be entire areas that I could see, but couldn't enter because I hadn't yet found the right information to access them. Whether it's a key, a symbol pattern, or even a code. The game just organically keeps giving you more and more things to solve, and because you're not tracking map markers or a quest log, you start to become familiar with the landmarks you visited and the paths you took to get there. Not only that, but you start to pay attention to the notes you're picking up and reading. You pay attention to the audio logs for details that might help you later. You talk to every NPC you run into to see what information you might glean from them. All things you normally find as extra in other games, Hell Is Us makes use of, and I loved it for that. The entire game works this way, even for the big main questline puzzles you need to solve to get to the end of the game and unlock its biggest dungeons. You'll want to take notes on symbols you find, locations of certain doors or key shapes, important historical figures, dates, and even the order of events in the history of the world. There's an investigation board in-game that does some of this note-taking for you, but it doesn't give you the answers straight up and expects you to use your own intuition to solve its riddles and puzzles. Just because you looked at a photo or painting doesn't mean the game will automatically highlight that information as important on your screen, like a lot of games these days do.
And here I thought you knew nothing. I have 1,000 questions.
Nothing felt like it was unnecessary in Hell Is Us because everything tied back to my main investigation in some way. To keep your expectations in check here as I heap praise on the game, the payoffs aren't anything mind-blowing, and I'm not saying Hell Is Us is the best thing since sliced bread. But in a generation of open-world action games that so often lead you by the hand in every which way, Hell Is Us has been one of the most refreshing gaming experiences for me in a while. As I noted earlier on, I wasn't all that engaged by the main storyline of Hell Is Us, but I was absolutely drawn into learning more about the history of Hedea and how and why these things came to be the way they are. And I was interested in that information because it was tied directly to my progression in the game, making it not just set dressing material, but actual, useful time spent in the game world. Finding information in one part of the game that would help me solve an ancient crypt puzzle later, and not having the game lead me to it, or just give me the obvious answers to figure it out, was more rewarding than any sort of loot or XP gain I would get from similar games. This is going to sound cliche as hell, but as I played Hell Is Us, I truly felt like I was on an adventure through its lost world. There's a lot of room for improvement with Hell Is Us. The combat could be more varied, there could be more depth to some of the puzzles or dungeons, and the story and characters could be more interesting. But it absolutely got exploration and the sense of discovery right. So if the development team gets a chance to make a follow-up, and expands on the foundations they build here, I am 100% there for it.